let me go to the assessment. So there's two consortia. They're developing the assessment. Two consortia. One is called Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or known as PARC, which will be developing the assessments for 2014 for 23 states, including the state of Colorado. Colorado just decided last month to go with PARC. So this is a test that I will be talking about, okay, PARC. Then there is Smarter Balance, which includes 25 states, including my state of California. Okay, so those are the two tests that will be administered in nationwide to measure the Common Core. Now I have a question, because some of you might be wondering, Jaime, we only have one set of standards, the Common Core. Why do we have two tests? Were you wondering that? God, I'm good. Anybody want to take a guess? Why? I heard money. What? Huh? Choice? Politics. Yes, it has to do with politics. It actually has to do with our U.S. Constitution. So as you know, education is a state right and responsibility. Not the right and responsibility of the federal government. It's the right of each state, individual state. The money that has been awarded to develop these tests comes from the federal government under the Race to the Top. So the federal government awarded $350 million to these two consortia to develop the assessments. And what they did was they issued an RFP. And about 10 organizations submitted, and they selected these two. They could not select one, because if they select one, they will be dictating to the states which assessment to use. So the states had choice. So until recently, your state had not decided. It was just in a matter of several weeks ago, I believe, that Colorado decided to go with PARC. Okay? So I'm going to be talking about PARC. But both are going to be measuring the same, and we will be able to compare the data across states, even though they're from both different consortia. Yes?
So, if this is driven by Race to the Top, these two assessments are driven by that, and we're talking about resources and changing our cap or aligning this with our cap. How are you going to create administration buy-in and teacher buy-in when this could change within the next, how consistent is this going to be? Is this going to change in 2 or 4 or 6 years?
That's a great question. Did you hear the question? Good. Okay, so the question for those of you who did not hear it, since this is coming from the Race to the Top, meaning the federal government, you know, there is a lot of political risk in terms of when administration change. How consistent will this also change? So, first of all, this only has to do with the assessment. The standards were not developed by the federal government. The federal government had nothing to do with this. It was the state governors and the state superintendent who decided. The Race to the Top, they decided this was a good idea. Let's encourage them to develop assessments that were aligned to the Common Core, so they put that. So the states have the choice to decide. One of the issues of why the governors wanted this is because there is an economy at scale in terms of saving money. Because the testing is almost a $2 billion operation in this country, because every state has a different test. So doing this and joining consortia, each of these consortia are not led by the federal government. They're not. They just gave the money. They're led by the state superintendent or commissioner of each of these. So for example, your commissioner is part of the governing board of PARC. They make the decisions. The 23 make the decision. They have veto rights in terms of the assessment. However, having said that, I'm going to be presenting to you PARC right now. In 2 years, your state can decide, you know what, we want to change the Smarter Valley. Or can decide, you know what, we don't want to do this assessment and keep with what we have. Yes, that's absolutely true. That's a possibility. This is the state. However, I don't think the standards are going away. I will tell you this. I've presented a lot throughout the country on the Common Core and the assessment. And it's for the first time in my career as an educator that I find very little resistance from teachers and people in the field. They actually like the way that this will help in terms of the direction of teaching and the direction of assessment. And you'll see. They're just concerned about whether the resources are going to be available. So I'm going to talk about PARC. Let me do a check, because we're supposed to end at 11, so we can take a break, or I can continue, and you can get up at any time. So we only have an hour left. I feel I have so much information, but it's up to you. Keep going. Feel free to get up and take a break. And there are going to be some conversations that you can also get up. Okay, right now this was supposed to be a table talk, so it's not. It's a row talk. At your row, talk what a test that is worth teaching to. What should it look like, sound like? Let me rephrase it. A test that you would not mind your own kids, grandkids, nephew, or nieces to take, or you would not mind teaching to, because it's a good test. What would it look like? You don't mind your own kid. What would you want to see? Yes?
First and foremost, that whatever is on it, we are aware of what that information is, and we can teach to it specifically without having to guess.
Not a surprise. The test should not be a surprise. That we know what's going to be there so we can teach to it. Okay? What else? Immediate feedback. What else? Yes?
It should be authentic to what is being taught.
Authentic to what is being taught. Okay, not these commission passages that have really no meaning. Okay? Yes?
Be authentic to the global workplace. Be scenario-based.
Scenario-based, authentic to the real world.
Not 9 one-hour sessions.
Not 9 1-hour session. Okay, what else?
It needs to be designed for 21st century learners.
Ooh, what does that mean, designed for 21st century learners?
If technology is the way that we are moving, they need to be able to take it on a computer.
Okay, technology should be part of this assessment. Anything else? Yes? Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, so what you're asking is, let's minimize sometimes the multiple choice. Okay, so what I would do, and if I am going back to your question on how do we have teachers own this, if I were doing this with all teachers, I would chart what you just said, and I would put it there and say, I am going to present to you the new assessment for 2014. You have just given me your vision of what you would like to see in the new test if you were designing. So keep in mind what you just said and see how close are we getting to your vision of a new test. Okay? So keep that in the back of your mind. These are just the states that will be administering the same test as Colorado, the Smarter Balance. Here, the PARC. Here the PARC goes. They want to create high-quality assessments. They want to create high-quality assessment. They want to build a pathway to college and career, support educators in the classroom, because it's not only about the assessment. I'm going to talk about PARC will give you tools of model unit, things that you can use in the classroom even before the students are assessed. Develop 21st century technology-based assessment and advanced accountability at all levels. Here's what their priorities are. So the priority is determine whether students, as early as in the elementary, are they on track to be college and career? Because it's not just in high school that we begin. Compare performance across states and internationally, which we couldn't do in the past because you saw the discrepancy. Assess the full range of the Common Core, including those standards that are so difficult to measure, and have a full range of performance so you can really actually see the performance of high and low performing students. So it can actually be differentiate whether high, low performing student and give it much more evidence of how they're doing. Provide data. You're probably going to love this. During the academic year, not after, so that it can inform instruction. We don't want an autopsy. It's too late, right? So we want it during the school year. Provide data for accountability, including measures of growth, and incorporate innovative approaches throughout the system. Here's the design. So PARC will be comprised, or your new test. PARC is your new test in 2014. School year of 2014-2015. Four components. Each component will be computer delivered, and it will leverage technology to incorporate those innovations. So we checked that one. Here's the first, and I'm going to talk about each of these. There are going to be two summative at the end of the year components. A performance-based, very authentic, and an end of the year. And I'm going to give you examples and talk about that. There's also going to be two formative assessments. One at the beginning of the year for a diagnostic to let you know how kids are, and you get the data very quickly. And one at the mid-year. Okay? So here's what it looked like. I think, do you have this chart? Okay, good. So here's what it looked like. So at the beginning, you have two optional assessments. Which means you don't have to do it unless the state decides, or your district decides to say, we are requiring it. You can have the diagnostic assessment and the mid-year assessment. Will be computer delivered. The expectation is you will get the result within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, so it gives you that information. There are in conversation that the mid-year might potentially be added to the overall end of the year score. That's why it says potentially summative. That will be a decision that the states have to make. So when I say the state or the district, so for example, in our case, even though we're using a smarter balance, in LA, we're actually going to require the diagnostic and the mid-year assessment. We have what we call our periodic assessment. I don't know if you have periodic assessment, that we pay an outside vendor. We're going to get these for free, which are going to be really aligned. So we're going to replace those and use these. I saw a question here. Yes?
So if we adopted those, I'm assuming it would replace our acuity?
That is a local decision. It's a local decision, but what I would suggest it should replace, because if not, you're going to be really giving a lot of assessments. But also, these assessments are perfectly aligned. But that's a local decision. Going to your question, this is for grades 3 to high school. I'm going to talk about K, 1, and 2 in a minute. Okay? Then you will have, at the end of the year, very close to the end of the year, you will have the performance base, and the end of the year. I'm going to talk about each of them in a minute. And then speaking and listening assessment will be done throughout the year. It is required It will be required for students to be done as speaking and listen. It will be locally scored by rubrics provided by Park, but it will not count. But you must administer it. It could be used for grades if you want it, or to report to parents. Yes?
For end of the year, are you talking like May?
Yeah, so end of the year means 90% of instruction. So depending on when your school year begins, yes, 90%, and you will get the result in 2 weeks. So before the end of the school year, okay? So here's the diagnostic assessment. The diagnostic assessment is designed to be an indicator of student knowledge and skills. It's basically your pretest to let you know what you need to focus, because it might tell you, you know, these kids already got this. I don't need to spend any time, but we need to do this. Then the mid-year will have some performance-based items and tasks, and with emphasis on hard to measure. And individual states may consider to include this as a subject. Here's the reason I would say that even though they're optional, I would actually, a superintendent or district, or even if the superintendent of the district does not decide, if I'm a teacher, because teachers will have access to this, I will administer the mid-year, because it's going to be parallel to the end. And it's mid-year, might be January, gives me, in 2 weeks, give me information on how my kids are doing and how they're going to be doing on this assessment. I still have 3 months to help them. I saw a question around here, yes? Not verbally, but you'll see it. You'll see it in a minute. You will see it in a minute. Performance-based assessment will be at the close of the end of the school year. This one will not be the performance-based, not necessarily at the 90%. The performance-based during at least the last 12 weeks of the school year. Because the performance-based might take over several sessions and take more time to score them. So that, and it will be that. And then the end of the year on the 90%. This is for both all grades and ELA and math. Okay, so you'll see, I'm not going to go over that because you'll see it. In high school, what you will have is end of course assessments in math. So particularly in the areas like algebra, geometry, there will be 2 versions. There will be an integrated in the event that a state decides to take an integrated sequence, or the traditional algebra, geometry. That's what they will do. Okay. This is okay. So how would it be administered? So here's what they're planning. In secondary, beginning in 6th grade, all tests, including the optional, will be online, the computer. In grades 3 to 5, they plan to deliver the assessment via the computer. So the students will read the test on the computer, but might answer it on paper and pencil, particularly the performance-based. And the reason they're saying that is they want to make sure that young students' ability on keyboarding. Okay? However, the goal is to get them to do it all on the computer. And they're going to be field testing. If in the field test that they feel they can do it, it will be administered also online. Okay? Why online? So a couple of reasons. The requirement on Race to the Top said that they must be administered using technology to maximize learning. Stakeholders, like all of us, demand more timely results. We want more timely results. And finally, the type of knowledge and skills that the Common Core require the use of technology. So there's a confusion. And I want to make it very clear when you see the samples, which you're going to get into it right now, it's not only about efficiency. People think, oh, they're doing the test online. They're doing the test online so that we can get the scores very quickly. That's part of it. But the other part is that students need to be able to improve their learning of reading and writing through technology, because we're living in the 21st century. So here are some of the things that the Common Core in writing call. Gather relevant information from multiple print and digital sources. So they have to be able to do digital sources. So for example, an assessment item could be that they see the dramatization of a play on the computer, read portion of the play on the computer, and then compare how that dramatization took into account the intent of the written version of the play. Okay? In math, one of the mathematical practices is use appropriate tools, including spreadsheets, computer algebra system, and statistical package. You will see when you see the sample how powerful these are, that it allows us to measure higher order thinking skills that perhaps in the past we couldn't do with a traditional multiple choice item. Okay? So, very quickly, like in 35 seconds, turn to your partner and say, as a result of the new assessment design and the mode of administration, what would you have to do instructionally different? And why do I emphasize instructionally to get ready? Because I don't want you to hear, and I asked Cindy about your technology infrastructure, I don't want you to say, we need more computers. Because you need that. But in lieu of that, they are things that you can start doing instructionally to get ready. That's what I want you to focus. Things are not under your control that you can start implementing. So talk for 35 seconds. What are you thinking? What are you thinking that you might want to do differently in terms of teaching and learning as you heard about this assessment design and the mode of administration? What are you considering? Yes. Okay, so the point here is we have to stop delivering our information through our mouth and let kids use multiple sources and do research. Absolutely, really, really, very, very important to do that. Yes, sir?
Embrace the technology that kids are bringing to school with them every day.
Embrace the technology that kids are bringing, but also remember, this new generation with the technology is really well versed at texting. So we do all this LOWOMG, and they do. We need to say to them, is part of those of you who are second language folks here and working in that field, know that this is where we need to help our students be bilingual and operate in two different systems. That it's okay to text that way, but when they encounter, like when you're submitting a paper or something, you would not put LOL, OMG. We have to, these are concrete things that we have to do in train our kids. Yes?
Teachers in the use of technology. Yes. Because how are they going to expect that if they're not even using that in their instruction to the level that?
Yeah, so we need to train our teachers in terms of using the technology. I always say that you will see that in some of the assessment items that you'll see, it says, and tells the student, highlight a sentence. And I always tell teacher, please, we want to make sure we don't want to see students taking a highlighter and highlighting the monitor. That they have to use the tools. And somebody said, oh, Jaime, the kids would not do that. Some of our teachers might. But the kids would not do it. They know. Yes?
Something that we're leaning towards a little bit was the use of our textbooks. Like these textbooks kind of going, I don't want to say away, but using that technology more and more in not totally the textbooks, but the combination of both.
Very good. Yeah. So these are very good things to start thinking, because remember, there might be in one of the research simulation tasks where they ask the students to research, do a search on the internet, on a controlled library. So they're not going to the entire web. And let's say they give them gambling, research, and they have to find articles on gambling. Will surface any article that has the word gambling. Like the quote that I said, I'm a gambler. And then they have to take that, and then it gives them a topic like, take a stand as to whether the U.S. should make gambling legal across the country, use evidence. So they have to differentiate that there will be articles that are totally not relevant. So those skills, yes, sir.
Writing seems to be very important because you have to be able to justify your comprehension with writing, you have to be able to defend your position with a mathematical statement, with an argument. So everything seems to revolve around being able to communicate via writing.
Absolutely. And because I have your scores here, so in reading, it ranges from a low is a 71% in reading, 10th grade, to a high of 80% in 3rd grade. In writing, you go from as low as 52 to just a high of 67. So I will tell you this. You could have a great reader and a great mathematician. And if the student can read really well, can still fail your test if the student cannot write. Because as you said, it has to demonstrate their reading, their comprehension of reading through writing. Yes?
We're going to have to repeat our emphasis how much we want to put in administration. And how many of you actually read and write anymore? If you got to sign your name that so we're going to have to determine how much value is that.
Well, you know, I'm so glad you said that, not me. I always shy away from saying that, but you make a really good point. And if you see my signature, I know how to write in cursive, but I only print. But even my signature is not in cursive, but it's true. It is true. Nowadays, the way everybody's going to be working, and our students are mostly going to be in tablets and in writing and computers. So it's a big point. I'll take the last one so we can move.
I'm thinking about our writing instruction. We used to devote quite a bit of time to narrative, and from what I'm seeing right now, there's much more writing about reading, like you mentioned.
Yes.
Claims and evidence, and we spend, a good chunk of our time writing short stories or writing about slice of life.
Yes.
And I don't see how that might be. That's not assessed. We need to
Hey.
change what we're doing the first 2 months of the year.
So it will be assessed. And I forgot to give you the percentages. Are very easy. Remember the 3 genres of writing? Anybody remember? I'm checking for understanding. Oh, good. So basically it's a third. That's what it is, a third. What they're going to have to do. So narratives still have to place, but 2/3 of writing is not narrative. So you do make a good point. So what I would suggest, your teachers and all of you are really good with narrative. If you want to invest time in PD and whatever, do it on information writing and argument. Because those are probably the ones you need more assistance. Okay, let's go into, here is the timeline from PAR. And what you see is that this year, they're piloting and field testing some of the items, the test items. Next year will be a field test, a much more comprehensive field test, and then finally, full implementation of the PARC assessments in 2014. Okay? So those will replace your new state test. I don't know if you have if any of your schools Title I? Okay, so your Title I schools, the AYP accountability will be based on these news tests. Okay, so here's, PARC is designed to reward quality instruction aligned to the standards. One of the good things about this is that test preparation will not work for these tests. So the times of let's get ready for and open the coach book those CSAP coach books, and let's get ready to prepare our kids, are over. They won't work. Hallelujah. Yes. The only test preparation that will work for this test, and you'll see it, is good teaching every single day. Every single day, good teaching. So you can't stop and prepare for this test unless you begin teaching from day one. In ELA, the text worth reading will be authentic text in the text. So they will not be these artificially produced that are developed for a particular test. And the question, the sequence of the question will help have the kids go deep into the text, like what we do in an excellent classroom. And in math, the part will focus on the major concept of each of the grade level, But I would suggest, and you can go maybe to the last, but it's listed there. Student Achievement Partners, which is a not-for-profit, just was created to help develop resources for Common Core, did a great thing, and you might see it in one of your breakout sessions in mathematics. So the website is there. What they do is they list what are the major concepts by grade level in mathematics from the Common Core. The problems worth doing, multi-step problem, conceptual question, like in an excellent classroom. In both areas, instead of reusing existing items, ARC will develop custom items to the standards. And there are fidelity to the standards. So this goes back to your point. No surprises. If you're teaching to those standards, there should be no surprises. So going back to your point also, what they did, PARC developed the model content frameworks. What they did was they went a little deeper in terms of what the standard means for the classroom. You can find them in the PARC website, which is also listed in one of your slides, parkonline.org. So that's what they went first. Then they designed the assessment blueprint. They went from the standard content framework, then the assessment plan. So for the first time, PARC is communicating in the same voice as teachers. The assessment would not be a surprise. Okay? So here's what you're seeing, then you'll get to look at some of the samples. You will see these three big shifts in the ELA text. You will see students having to engage in more complex text, having to extract and employ evidence. That's one of the major shifts. It is about evidence. It is not about what you feel. So I don't know if you know this strategy that's been used a lot, particularly in the workshop or when we're reading like the self-to-self connection, text-to-text, and text to real world. It's a good strategy, but it's been misused. In the sense you see a self-to-self connection where the kid said, oh, I saw, and writes on a post-it, I saw an elephant in the zoo. Because the book mentioned something about an elephant. So that doesn't help them comprehend the text. So we want to move away. If you're going to make a self-to-self connection, you first have to comprehend the text. Find evidence. And that's what this new test will ask you. It's like, if you're going to ask a question, about, how does this text or passage make you feel? Which I will tell you, in the extreme. There are people out there going, well, you shouldn't ask. We shouldn't be asking that. We should always be asking evidence-based or text-dependent questions, which I believe is true, in the direction of the Common Core. But there's nothing wrong with you asking, how did this passage make you feel? If you follow up with what in the text led you to make you feel that way. And you will see that in the sample test that I'll show you in a minute. These are the shifts. You can read it on your own. I would read this because we don't have time, but these are really the shifts in terms of ALA. So The big two standards in ELA on the assessments are standard 1 and 10. So standard 1 is about evidence, and standard 10 is text complexities. So what we want to always get is to go back to the text. Go back to the text and increase the text complexity. So there's a really great study by ACT called Reading Between the Lines that says that it's not that kids don't comprehend. Don't comprehend. What they found was they have the ability to comprehend and the skills to comprehend, but they don't have the ability to cope with complex text. So we've done a good job, but we don't move those skills where we can introduce them to a much more complex text. Okay, so here's the type of items in